Today had to have been the hardest day, like in class, that I've experienced since I've been at UBC. As you can see, I'm repping, but whatever. So, I'm the only black woman in my class. I am the only black woman in my cohort. So when blackness comes into the conversation, it gets very interesting. So this is like the first time like we're talking about blackness. Black feminism has come into the conversation because we had to read Horton Spiller's Mama's Babies, Papa's Maybes, and the first chapter in Franz Fanon's The Wretched of the Earth. And so the class discussion got very interesting towards the end and had me very I was hot. Like, I'm not even gonna like make some eloquent word. A bitch was fucking hot. So pretty much the reading talked about like the body and the flesh and the ungendering of enslaved Africans through the process of the mental passage, and the flesh being this site where violence against black bodies was consistent. How the flesh was the justification for colonizers and white folks and plantation owners and all these people to enact violence on black people. And so the author kind of goes on to discuss how, like, critiquing the Moynihan Report and how the emasculation of the black family is at fault because of the black woman and the matriarch, and all of these pieces, and even just the naming of black women will always have this connection to slavery. So like looking at how slavery kind of affects the ways that we think about the dynamics of black women in the black family, on top of looking at how violence against black bodies is a host, like a site for where violence happens against us. So of course, my first time reading this was in a black feminist course, so it was definitely a challenging read. But again, after rereading it and going over it again, and the help of one of my really good friends, like I was able to piece through it and actually make sense of it. And so pretty much what the discussion was on violence, like violence against pretty much black folks. And so our class dynamic is led by like moderation of the students, which I hate, because if I'm here to learn, why are the students teaching me or going through with me the motions of a reading if they don't fully understand? So, which I think was a problem, because when you first read Mama's Babies, Papa's Maybe, nobody understands what the fuck she's saying. We all know that. And so for me, it being my third and fourth time reading it, like I finally like understood like some aspects of the reading. And so one of the people in my class mentioned or posed this question of how has colonization kind of affect your thinking, or like how has it affected you? And so the white man in my class was the first to respond, and he's going on about, this is really interesting how these readings just really like, bring insight to what's going on and what has happened, and it's really interesting, and just really just shocked me just to really like see how like the way that these authors kind of formulated this language to like, express what's really, happening. And I'm just like, it's interesting. So I went ahead and just said, well, for me, this whole reading has really opened my eyes to like, damn, as a black woman, I cannot detach from slavery. Like, as a black American woman, I'm always going to have this connection to slavery, whether if I am redefining who I am with new language and new terms. It's always going to be an affect of how I want to reclaim who I am, my identity, because of slavery. And I'm up against these notions of like patriarchy and white supremacy to fight like for my identity, on top of the fact that my body will always again be separated with flesh, because again I'm being violated all the time as a black woman. And I mentioned how like my body is a moving violation on like the ground that we walk on in America. Like, I'm always walking in a state of resistance because this place was not made for me. And so I go on to say, like, my body is going to always be a site of violence. And this reading does speak a lot to my identity and how I kind of navigate. So now that I understand what this author and the scholar is talking about, it makes sense for me. And so I said all this shit like this is a real life experience that is happening to me. Everybody is quiet. So everybody's just like, damn, like, or I don't know what the fuck they thinking. It just got real fucking quiet. And so then everybody else started, well, another person spoke on how, you know, they feel as a marginalized person, like this is a lived experience, like this is something that they also have to continuously go through. They cannot escape. And another student talked about, you know, how her influences of being, you know, part Chinese, how that kind of manifests in her experiences. But I was just still kind of trying to figure out how are these examples connected to this understanding of like violence against Black bodies in relation to the reading, or just even how violence against people of color kind of manifest in like a current reality. Because I also even said that, you know, I'm born into colonization. Like I am, like once I was born and other Black folks are born on this land, like you are automatically a site for violence. And so one of the women in my class wanted to pose this connection that, well, you know, to look at it in a more contemporary perspective, we can compare, you know, Horton Spiller's, you know, argument to meat. And I'm just like, meat? What are you talking about? And so she explains it as, well, meat is, you know, being packaged and it's like it's being packaged and reproduced to be sold. And I understand that context, but I'm not meat. My experience should not be related to something that is already dead. Not to mention, I just gave you a contemporary understanding of what she's talking about. I'm talking about myself. I'm talking about how I move daily as a form of resistance, because will always be connected to slavery. And the fact that she kind of brought that up just really threw me off. And just kind of that whole experience after of just like my experience is ignored. And then even just the way that the class kind of construct this idea of like being a part of a marginalized group is such an abstract concept from the past. And the way that I explained it to one of my friends, like I feel like sometimes they're talking about Blackness and indigenous folk and their experiences in colonization as it was and not as it is. So what is happening now is not discussed. So we're always talking about, well, I can't believe what they were doing to them and this is what was going on, but not in a sense of a current state of urgency, a current state of like violence, of what's really, really going on. And so the more that I kind of navigate through my experiences in the classroom, it really kind of positions me to really like battle with what Blackness looks like as a sole individual in a very non-Black space. And so now I'm in a position where if I do want to share something about my own experiences, how would that be taken, you know, from the rest of the class? Are they going to consider that? Are they going to take that as a truth that is currently going on, or are they still going to connect that to the reading as something that has happened in the past, as something that I have achieved or I have accomplished? But I don't know, I just think I left feeling really invisible. I really left feeling like the situation or my situation is a event of the past, and almost a situation that's so complex that they cannot understand, which is fine, but almost something that is just so abstract of a concept, it doesn't seem realistic. But I mean, those are my assumptions. But again, I'm going through the motions, and I'm gonna just drink a glass of wine and try this shit again tomorrow. So yeah, thanks for watching.